Revision and revise. Same root, but I want to show you the word using two different parts of speech. So revision is the noun, and then revise is the verb. Unlike last week's discussion of perception and perceive, these are pretty much the same thing, just in different parts of speech. And just like perception, revision and revise come from Latin, revideo or revisio, and that means basically to see again or to revisit. Another word in this same family that would come from this same Latin origin would be review. So review and revise are not too different, but one of the big differences between reviewing and revising, if you're reviewing a piece of writing or you're reviewing notes, you're looking it over again. You're really just revisiting it. However, with revision, you really engage in rewriting. So revision is a type of transformation. So as in repeat, redo, and vision. So when a teacher asks you to revise, it doesn't just mean that you look for red squigglies and blue squigglies, although that could be a part of it. That really is editing. But when you're asked to revise, you're asked to try to put on a fresh set of eyeballs, so to speak, and really think about ways that you can make that piece of writing new, clearer, more beautiful, things like that. It's a redo. So it's not about fixing mistakes necessarily. There might be some of that, but it's about adding, removing, and switching things around. Why? For three main things, just to kind of keep it simple. Clarity, meaning is the writing clear? Can a reader understand the ideas or the stories that you're trying to communicate? Organizing, and making it creative in this case. So we're looking at three tasks. Could you do lots of things? Yes, of course. But I want us to think about revision in terms of thinking tasks, not just like adding, removing, and switching, right? We're not just like adding things to add, although if you're under the word count, yes, like you will need to add on. And if you're far over the word count, you may need to subtract. You may need to cut it down. But let's focus more on this deep thinking. So revision is very much a deep thinking activity, and it is about change. Now, I also want to say that when a teacher tells someone to revise their writing, it doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't mean that you're a bad writer. It means that you're being a writer. And a part of writing is doing this stuff so that we can keep making things better. So one step is to consider what parts might be reorganized. And that could be on a sentence level within a sentence. It could be, let's reorganize and take some little simple sentences and do some combining using commas and semicolons. Or it could be switching the order of the paragraphs. If you look it over and you read it and you think, I should have introduced this other character sooner, then you move things up, move things around. All right, so reorganizing for the sake of making it clear and having a good flow. The next question you want to ask yourself is, what could be more clear? What could be more readable? That might mean looking for transition words. If you're looking in your story and you don't see first and next and later and further on in the day or things like that indicate time, that indicate that things are moving along, you might want to add some of that in. Another important point of clarity is to have a consistent point of view. So if you notice that you say, like, I went here and I did this, it was so beautiful, this and that, and then you did this and that, and then she went to the store. Like, you want to stick to a consistent point of view. If you're in first person, then I did this, I did that. Of course, if you're describing like, oh, the table was luxurious and beautiful with a marble top, then yes, when you're talking about a table, that's in third person. But otherwise, any movement and whatnot is going to stay in first person if you're in first person. So got to keep it consistent. Consistent tense, whether that be in the past tense or if you're writing the whole thing kind of in the present tense, which is pretty pretty common, especially because the story isn't very long. You're going to want to make sure the tense is as consistent as possible. Otherwise, like if you're doing like a little flashback or something like that, flashback would give you a reason to switch into past tense and then go back to present. But 500 words is pretty short, only about a page and a half, so we want to try to keep it as consistent as possible. Another thing for clarity and readability is dividing the writing into more paragraphs. If you're not sure where to do that, you can ask me in class, ask a friend as well. But we want to keep those paragraphs into manageable chunks. Honestly, please, usually no more than like maybe 8 sentences, 10 sentences, depending on the length of sentence. There's really no hard and fast rule for this. I tend to like to break things up more. That's what makes more sense to me, but I can't tell you exactly how to do this, except that oftentimes more paragraphs is better. And then cutting repetition. If you say like, oh, the day was so sunny, and it was so sunny, the sun was out, right? Like we get it, okay? So you want to cut out repetition. That just sounds like you're just putting more words on the page for the sake of wordiness. So look for those places where you're repeating, and you might consider sentence combining or just cutting something altogether. Third point, and this is the last point. Does the author show, not tell, about the setting and characters? So what I mean by that is, how do we learn about people, the people in our lives? If we say this person is kind, if we say, oh, she's spreading kindness around the school, you can just say that, but like, how do you show it? Do you make that person talk, and then do you have them give compliments, check in with people? Do you have them walking through the hallway, right, movement, and noticing that somebody is struggling, they drop something, and then they stop, kneel down and help them gather their things, right? So those are things that with actions and words that you can show a reader how kind a character is, rather than just kind of saying it, which is simplistic. And then also, again, like movement, a sense of showing with setting, and not just reporting, right? So a report is when you just give the facts. And sometimes that happens with writing that lacks detail. That's why I wrote this word vignette here. Whether you're building on one of the vignettes that you've already written or you're doing something new, it's really worth considering taking some time to just enjoy creating some beautiful description, say, of your setting. Or some ugly description if you have some sort of freaky, spooky, ugly type place. Whatever it is, you want a reader to feel like they were there, that they were in the room where it happened, so to speak. Okay? One final word with all of this. This revision is not just for you as 7th graders. All authors, all writers, go back, revisit their work, allow other people to read it, to give them their impression of maybe what's not clear, what could be organized differently, and what is just kind of blah, and then go back and transform it up until the point where they have a deadline. So could you revise over and over again? Sure. But for now, for us, I am asking you to revise one time. This does not mean you're a bad writer. This does not mean you're not a good student. It means that I'm asking you to start being like professional authors.